Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Greca. I'm a senior program manager with Microsoft, and today I have the amazing Sulab from Antares with us. And we're just going to have a bit of a conversation around what we're seeing in the education sector across the region. And yeah, I guess really, Sulab, that's a really good segue. It's a really good first question. What are you seeing? We're about to go back to semester one. We're literally weeks away now for academics ramping up and universities ramping up systems and operations post COVID, although I think many are still in hybrid. What are you seeing, and what can we learn from that?
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be on this program. Jason, thank you for inviting me. We're seeing a range of things, but I think one of the things that we are experiencing is that when COVID hit last year, the academics, teachers, etc., they all had to rapidly change, and the best they could do at that time was to teach the same material they were teaching the same way they were teaching in a classroom, and that was okay, but that didn't really work because the online classroom experience is very, very different. It can be actually very transactional sometimes as well. So what we are now seeing is that now that the urgency around preparing for remote learning and having all the infrastructure, etc., is all done, the institutions are now taking a step back and saying, how can we better equip ourselves to provide this better remote learning experience to students and to better equip teachers, academics, tutors, etc. Because that is now the core focus of everybody. And it does require us to think about it differently and for us to engage with students and teachers differently.
Yeah, awesome. So with that in mind, some universities are obviously more prepared than others and have moved the dial in different ways. If you had to give one piece of advice to a university today to get ready for semester one, what would it be?
My advice would be to make sure, especially when it comes to remote learning, that you have think of social learning as something that hasn't been explored by universities and institutions yet, and that is, if you look at the way how the students are actually working with other social media platforms, they're already equipped to use this. They have learned so much from it. We've matured with the technology, and the way platforms like Teams work, they're designed to work in that fashion. They're so natural to have conversations in that fashion, and that social learning aspect, I feel, is often missed by institutions. It has great value because social learning allows you to learn from others, either by observation or by asking questions, or just even in engaging in small discussions. You engage, you build connections with your peers and teachers. You become, over a period of time, you become more comfortable in just being yourself, and ultimately it leads to better discussions, better community, so to speak, and it allows you to suit different learning styles and different individual preferences, whether it's regarding time and availability, whether it's geographic, culture, all of those kind of things are removed with this aspect of social learning. And I would strongly encourage academic institutions to think about that, and how they can harness this technology that they have to provide better student and teaching experiences.
Absolutely. And you know what, we sort of touched on it a bit earlier, and this shift to a more social paradigm, a more social way of engaging students, and really we're seeing a lot more in universities in particular, a move to project or research-based tasks where, really you're grouping students together and getting them to, work in a diverse environment and, solve problems together. That seems to be where Teams really does excel. Uh, but really, there's another big question mark that, again, you and I have talked about before, and I know David Kellerman's a big advocate for, is the changing role of content at a university. What are you seeing in that space in terms of, universities historically would lay out their subjects in a very deliberate manner. They would have readings, they would have sort of a cookie cutter approach to delivering learning and teaching. Is that still true, or do you see a shift?
I think it hasn't changed yet dramatically, but it is changing now, and universities are increasingly realizing that it's all about that student experience and how what students learn from either forming relationships, networks, or just by learning by doing things, and that is becoming a lot more important now. And it's obviously COVID. It's highlighted that to a great extent, because you're now having to compete with a large number of other institutions that you wouldn't have otherwise. And we are actually doing quite a lot of work in this sort of space as well. And one of the things, for example, we've learned is that social and learning interactions both can exist in a learning environment, and we have to embrace that. We have to allow the data we have to really reflect how students want to learn, because that's I started the question earlier. The content is very important, but I think the content curated by the students and teachers in a conversation when they're discussing a particular topic is more important, and that's what leads to students remembering the conversation, students remembering the topic, and everybody getting a well-rounded view of different perspectives and different thought points.
Absolutely, and I guess that you're also probably hearing changes to assessment, and how do we assess engagement and performance, and all of those other things across the higher ed space as well. And with that comes questions around data. What have you learnt in the last year, and what are some of the demands that you're hearing from customers around data collection, data analytics and learning and deep learning and all of those fun things that we talk about quite a bit?
Yeah, I mean, the nature of how assessments are done is also changing. It's not changing as fast as maybe some others would like, but it is definitely there is a start towards that change. What we are learning from institutions who are keen on this side of things, and who are keen on the data analytics side of things, and who want to measure students differently, whether it's to do with student participation or the way the students are actually being assessed for the topics they're learning. It is becoming crucial for the organizations to have appropriate data platforms built in that will allow them to have a holistic view of all the students' touch points and students' interactions, not only with the learning management system, not only with Office 365, not only with Teams, but all of the different tools that they use to then understand, firstly, which students are engaged, not engaged, but what are the steps that students are taking to learn that content? When do students typically tend to learn? Do they have a specific preference? Are there any patterns emerging here? Those kind of things are becoming quite important, and we've developed, based on the feedback we've received, we've developed a learning analytics module that has been extremely well received. And what it does is it allows, again, it captures all the data that you have on Teams and allows you to draw patterns and understand which students are working together well. What are groups? Which are the groups emerging here? Which students might be better working together on an assignment? Which students are not engaged, and how we can use that data to use some techniques that are proven before, and that will help that student become more engaged. That data also shows what are some of the IT restrictions typically that we sometimes, overlook. I was speaking with another institution last week, and we were looking at how they are. We were just looking at the trends and the patterns, etc. And a simple observation led to us understanding that there are multiple platforms that the students use, and for them to use the academic platforms, they actually have to use a VPN, which is actually not very helpful, because it's much easier for them to jump onto other platforms that are free and easy, and they don't have to do anything to get onto them. And these things, while we have enabled remote learning, etc., these things still exist, and the data allows us to see all of those kind of things. So it not only helps from an assessment point of view, but also helps us to understand what issues there are with student engagement, because the student engagement is ultimately going to reflect in the student results and the student's perception of that particular course.
Yeah, interesting. So leading on from that, data is fantastic. Dashboards are great, but not everyone knows how to read those things. And not everyone in an organization like a university will have access to that data. Let's be ultra transparent.
Yep.
What's next then? So how can we use that data? What in your mind in terms of 2021 Teams platform? What's the next thing that we can be looking at to really make that data useful?
Yeah, so we are building on my previous point. We built a data analytics platform that allows us to use some previous research and proven strategies to improve the student experience. What we are working on now is a concepts around just-in-time learning and just-in-time teaching, as well as some of the nudge strategies. For example, we know that if students spend 5 minutes before the class in preparing for that particular topic, they're more likely to remember that topic than otherwise. We also know that if we can get the students to prepare for that and get them to ask questions they have before the class, then the discussion in that class can be more around the things that students want to discuss and have questions about, and it can be an active discussion as opposed to the academic, going through their regular content. So these things play an important, very important role in how we use that data. Because what we can do with the data now is to say, the student has a class tomorrow at 8 a.m. and is going to study this content with this learning outcomes. Why don't we reach out to the student a day before and say, this is the topic we're going to learn tomorrow with these objectives. Please take 5 minutes to record any questions you have that you'd like the lecturer to address. And those kind of things play a huge role. In another example, we know when the assessments are on, we know what type of assessments are they, whether they are, and we also know that what are we trying to assess here? Are we trying to assess? We're obviously trying to understand that the students learn the content, but there are other things around the assessment which are related to presentation skills, writing skills, and so on. So how can we reach out to the student just in time when they are working on an assessment or they're about to work on an assessment to say, hey, would you like me to show you a quick video on key things to remember when you're presenting in your class tomorrow? Those kind of things are crucial, and we believe it's going to, when we use that data to provide that personalized information to students and help them in improving their skills or help them in improving that content, that is going to help with the student experience for that particular course as well as the institution. And it's going to have greater dividends for everybody involved.
And to be super transparent, we're kind of talking about intelligent, proactive nudges inside teams for those students, right? And you could do that in any number of contexts, I'm assuming. But in that personal scope, having your own little personal assistant that says, "Hey, I noticed you have an assessment due in a week's time. Doesn't look like you've done anything yet. Would you like a little bit of a primer? Here's a video on how to do referencing an APA or whatever it is, right? That I think would be hugely impactful for universities, and I think it's highly applicable to pretty much any level of education. That reminding, because we've learned a couple of things, I believe, from COVID, and research is still trickling in, but one of the findings is that students do a really bad job of managing time and managing workload. And I guess you're hearing that from customers as well, and solutions like you're talking about would go a long way to helping students manage, particularly in the remote setting, which is alien to quite a few of them.
And I'm a great example of that. When I'm working on this platform day in, day out, and working with customers, I'm also always thinking about me as a student as well. I had some habits, and one of the habits was to leave the assignment as late as possible, and then I would work, the day before or the night as when required to get that done. That doesn't. Fortunately, I did pretty well with that because I was pretty comfortable with some of the things, the topics that I was going to be assessed on. If I was actually not comfortable, then I would probably be more prepared and those kind of things. But these nudge theories have, they're used worldwide by governments, by private institutions in all walks of our life. And it starts from these little things that fast food chains do to things that we are recommended when we are when we might be on a train station and or on public properties, etc. That all ultimately lead us to make decisions that or help us make decisions that we want to do anyway, but we have been procrastinating or been putting them away. And these kind of things are designed and are proven to work in that fashion. So we definitely, and we found that it actually improves the quality of learning and the quality of teaching and learning experience as well. So definitely not a new thing, but something with the context in which we are applying is newish, I would say. We're very excited actually. We've spoken to a number of customers about these concepts. A lot of this feedback has actually come from customers, and I say customers, specifically academics. So we're very excited to see what this does and the real impact it will have on students.
Yeah, it's one of those things I think we could definitely take post-COVID. It's something that is, really a driver for success, regardless of face-to-face, remote, hybrid, whatever we want to call this new normal. And I really do hate calling things new normal, but it's exciting. So, what else is top of mind? What else is forefront for Antares this year?
One of the other things we're working on is improving. So we've thought about this concept of what is a positive learning experience, and a lot of customers use Qbot for asking questions and for getting answers to the commonly asked questions, etc. But we've thought about, if you think about what a positive student experience is, sure, a student can ask a question and they can get an answer to that. Now, that sort of experience is good, especially if you're asking administrative type questions that have been answered before. But is that a really good experience if you are asking, or if you're trying to learn a particular concept and you ask a question, you get an answer? Whereas if you ask the question and that led to greater discussion within the class, and that led to, you getting different perspectives from everybody and examples and references and so on, and you might even not get the actual answer, but what we believe you will learn from that discussion is far more superior than what you would otherwise if we just gave you an answer to that particular thing. So what we are now working on is improving facilitation experience within an online learning environment, and also working on how can we make technology more human. Online learning is sometimes very transactional. So we're working on making the AI of the bot more human, as well as building smarts into the system that will allow us to have further and greater discussions on questions that students are asking. And we believe, again, that will lead to greater discussions, greater outcomes, and will also help everybody involved, the teachers and the students involved. What's top of mind? Where are students struggling? And that can be discussed then further on in the class, and will provide a superior outcome.
Yeah, I really like that idea of essentially a community of learning, and highly applicable to areas outside of just the purest classroom setting. I think that would be useful as a community of practice and facilitation tool, where there may actually not be an answer to a question. Let's be honest. The really good questions don't have answers. They have a ways of approaching and building your own view of the world, but may not be a definitive yes or no. So yeah, I think that's very, very helpful, particularly in some of the humanities based subjects, which is quite different from what we see with David and the QBot. So mathematical formulae and those kinds of views are quite finite. There's an answer, whereas if we're dealing with linguistics and sort of analysis of how does this kind of work, or how is somebody feeling about something, that's a very different way of approaching it.
That's exactly right. Like you hit the nail on the head. Like not every question has a specific answer. There are many ways and many views on a particular topic, and it's all about embracing that. And like you said, maths and engineering subjects, etc., can be very objective, but literature, arts and those kind of things need to allow for different perceptions and different flavors of the discussion to come in, and that's what we're working on, and something we're quite excited about.
Excellent. No, that's fascinating, because it was a nice segue into my last question that I had. Obviously, if you have anything else that you wanted to talk about, but other than what you've just described, what's the one? And you don't have to go into too many details. You don't have to name customers, of course, and it doesn't even have to be education specifically. But what's the one project or bit of tech or upcoming thing that you're working on that has you really giddy with excitement?
So we're working on a number of implementations, but one of the things we're doing is around, and I mentioned this before, around humanizing AI, and that, to be honest with you, is not a challenge or a problem that we have solved fully. We're still working through that problem, and that's what actually excites me, because this problem is so broad and so vast. We are so thankful that we have really some of the customers we are able to work with are really forthcoming and bring ideas to the table, and allow us to work with them in creating these experiences, and in creating and in some ways piloting these things we're working on. And that's what's really exciting, the fact that we're able to think about problems that have not been solved, and be able to attempt to solve them and be able to have customers that are willing to try that. And that's what's really exciting, and something that inspires us as a team, and motivates us when we come every day and be like, how are we going to solve this challenge today?
Yeah, no, it's funny that you say that, because I one of the things I love most about working in education, and obviously coming from an education background myself, is just the creativity of the community and their willingness to share ideas. I'm not sure if you see that in other, because I know obviously Antares works across multiple verticals, but in education, I think you can really build a relationship and share ideas. And I've been on multiple meetings, even just this week, where people have shared an idea and I've gone, wow, I don't think anyone's ever thought of that. Let's document that and see if we can bake it into the product. Or if not, let's look at what we can do to make that an app inside of Teams. And it's just an awesome experience to be surrounded by literally hundreds of customers that just share ideas constantly. It can be exhausting, don't get me wrong. And sometimes their feedback, if I had a heart, I'd be upset, but that's okay. It's all good. But yeah, I agree. I think for me as well, the one thing that makes me giddy with excitement is just seeing the passion of our partner community, the passion of our customers, and for us internally. I mean, the passion that we have for our customers, and that whole vision of to empower every person on the planet to achieve more. And you would know this because you've spent so much time within Microsoft. It's true, and people really live and die by that philosophy. So when things go wrong, and things go wrong, it's just inevitable with technology. Doesn't matter what time of the night it is, they're all up trying to help solve problems for our customers.
That's right. And one thing that rings so true about the academic community, like you said, very sharing, very open. No matter which institution you're from, everybody wants to, at the end of the day, provide a good student experience. Yeah. And it is so heartwarming to see that, because we don't see that always in other industries for obvious reasons. They're all
monetarily driven.
That's right. They were in a very competitive scenario, but education is, whilst also sometimes competing, obviously, are very open to sharing ideas and working together, and open to partnerships, which is extremely great to see, and very rewarding for partners like us.
Yeah, the other thing I think, and I think you'll probably agree with me, the other shift that I've seen in higher education, at least over the last maybe 5 years or so, is that the IT teams have really stepped up. Like historically when I was working at universities, it was always an us versus them. And it was never quite, people didn't get on or share ideas, but that's changed. Like I can't name a single university now where the IT team doesn't, within their power, pull out all the stops to help a teacher, and which is why we're able to achieve so much, right? That's why they're more an empowering force than they are a blocker. I find, at least in the lion's share of customers.
No, I fully agree. I mean, and like you said, this has changed significantly over a period of time, and obviously COVID has also assisted with that, because now, because of the monetary pressures, academic institutions are under, the focus is actually, on student experience and students, as well as obviously academics. So that has also helped. And like you said before, the IT departments have done so much in so little time, with so few resources last year. It's just fascinating to see how organizations so large are able to change within a matter of weeks, and still deliver the end outcomes, etc. To the customers, and in this case, obviously students. It's fascinating, and I fully agree. IT departments have done a lot,
and continue to do so. Yeah,
and 100%.
Yeah, so it's a constantly shifting ball, and with products like Teams, as I'm sure you're aware, there's always something new. that the IT guys need to be in front of and sort of managing and understanding so they can support end users. And yeah, it's just a really positive experience to work with both academics and IT pros and everyone in between, because there's so many people that work within a university or within a district or a department of ed to make it all work. And it's we're very happy that people are willing to trust us with their support.
That's right. And platforms like Teams are so great enablers because they allow different different apps to be used. So I'm not restricted to a certain way of working or a certain app that has been entrusted with me by IT and I have to use this, etc. It allows me the flexibility, which is what I think really works. And it's been embraced by IT. It's being increasingly seen used by teaching and learning staff, and it's great to see that.
Awesome, man. Well, I don't have any additional questions. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think
we've hit time.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I didn't come up with an agenda. I just thought I'd just go with the flow. So yeah,
Awesome,
I'm
man.
happy.
Well, I do really appreciate your time. Thanks for everything. I look forward to seeing you face to face again at some stage in the future. I know you're back in the office at least some of the time. So at some stage, I'm sure I'll have to make the trip to Sydney town. But yeah, fantastic having you here. Thank you everyone for watching. Sulabh, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'll provide you my email address, sulabhj@antaresolutions.com.au, but feel free to go to our website, antares.solutions, and reach out to us that way. More than happy to have a discussion with you about what you're looking to do. And if we can help, if we can't help, then I'm sure we can at least have a discussion and maybe guide you in what we know about the industry. So would be great to catch up.
Awesome, mate. Much appreciated. Thank you everyone for paying attention and for being a part of today's session. Thank you all.